In this video, I'll show you how to create this awesome 3D animation step by step. Inspired by the fantastic animations from MagnatesMedia, you'll learn to make something just as impressive. And the best part? You can do it all using the free version of DaVinci Resolve. So there's no excuse not to try it out. Let's dive in and see how it's done. Alright, so as you can see, I have this picture of a showman with a circus background and two elephants. But since it's just a still image, we cannot use it directly in the animation because we need to create depth between the showman and the background. So, how do we do that? First, we need to cut the character out of the image and save it as a PNG, so the background stays transparent. Second, we need to remove the character from the background and save that as a separate image. There are a couple of ways to do this. The first method I'll show you can be done using the free version of DaVinci Resolve. Let me show you how. We'll make the cutout using the masking technique. To start, click on the Fusion tab to open Fusion. As you can see, we have two nodes, Media In and Media Out. The Media In node is our still image where we'll create the mask. But first, enable single view mode by clicking on this icon so we can work properly. To create the mask, select the Media In node and then choose Polygon Mask. You'll notice everything disappears because we haven't created the mask yet. To create the mask, left-click on the viewer to add points. Once you connect the last point with the first, you'll see the mask. Since we want to mask out the showman, we need to view the image. Go to the inspector window and disable the polygon node for now. This will let you see the image again, so you can draw the mask around your character. For those who don't know, if you press and hold Ctrl and use the scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out. Press and hold the middle mouse button to move around the image. Find a suitable starting point and start creating the mask around your character. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that masking is time-consuming, so be patient. The more precise your mask, the better the effect. So take your time. There's no need to rush. Zoom in and out as needed to get the proper view and keep drawing. Pay attention to small details like hair or the shape of the dress. Be careful with these complex areas. Make sure your mask is close to the character's edges, as a mask that's too far away might look odd. Try to be as precise as possible. Once you've finished masking, go to the inspector and enable the polygon node again. You should end up with something like this. Alright, if I zoom in a bit, you'll see that the beard has some background showing. It's not a big deal here, but let me show you how to fix minor issues like this. Click on the polygon node and go to the inspector. To make adjustments, decrease the border width a little to make the mask smaller. You can then increase the soft edges slightly to smooth things out. This helps fix small issues. If the mask still isn't perfect, adjust the points as needed. To save the masked image as a PNG, right-click on the viewer and choose Save Image. Rename your image. Click on Save as Type section, select PNG, and then press the Enter key to save it. Now you can delete the polygon node since we don't need it anymore. Next, we'll erase the character from the background using the Paint tool. Click on the Media In node and add a Paint node. Make sure you're on frame 0. Usually, we'd set the stroke duration to the last frame of the composition, so the changes apply to the entire clip. However, since we're saving the image, this isn't necessary, but you can adjust it if needed. Go to the Apply mode and choose the Double Brush option, which is our cloning tool. Let me show you how to use it. First, I'll zoom in a little. Hold the Control key and left-click and drag to adjust the brush size. Press Alt and left-click to set the cloning point. Then release the Alt key and left-click to start cloning. Since this image doesn't have a lot of space, you might need to set new cloning points as you work. It's best to clone small sections and set new points to make the process smoother. Once you're done, you might end up with something like this. It might look a bit strange, but that's okay because it will stay behind the character. Let me show you how it looks with the character. Before that, make sure to save the image using the same method as before. Right-click on the viewer, click on Save, rename it, and save it as a PNG. To import the PNG, go to the Media pool, click once to cancel any selection, Then press Ctrl+I to import the image. Drag it to the workspace and connect its output to the Paint node's output. You should see something like this. It doesn't look bad and can be used for the animation. However, some areas might still need improvement. That's why I'll show you an easier method to mask out the character and remove the background with just a few clicks. We'll use free AI tools for this. If you have DaVinci Resolve Studio, you can use Magic Mask, but for everyone else, follow along with me. Open your browser. First, we're going to remove the background. Go to the search bar, type Remove Background, and press Enter. You might see different search results, but find the Adobe Express link and click on it. A new page will open. Click on Upload Image, which will open the file manager. Look for the image from which you want to remove the background. Select it and click Open. It will automatically start processing. Wait until it's finished, and that's it. The background is removed. Although we still have these elephants, we can easily remove them later. But first, click on the Download button to save the image. Once downloaded, go back to DaVinci Resolve. In the Media pool, press Ctrl+I, locate the image, and press Enter to import it. Once done, drag it to the timeline and open Fusion. So now we are going to mask out the elephants. Click on the Media node and add a polygon node. Now just simply start creating a mask around the elephant. Make a rough mask around it. No need to be precise because we are going to remove it. Once the mask is complete, you will see everything else got erased and only the elephant is visible. But we want the opposite. So to fix this, go to the inspector and tick the invert option. Now we have successfully removed the elephant. You can also mask out the character as well. That way, you don't have to invert the mask. But I didn't do that because I want to show you how to remove more than one object in case you have multiple extra objects. Click on the polygon node and add another polygon node. Now, simply create a mask around the second object, in my case, the second elephant. Once the masking is done, you will see I have the character and the second elephant. To remove the second elephant, go to the inspector and from the Apply Mode section, choose Subtract. And that's it. By following this method, you can remove multiple objects. Now simply save the image as a PNG by following the method I showed earlier. Once done, open the browser again. Now, to remove the character from the background, we will use a website called freepik.com. You can either search for it or type freepik.com to directly open it. Once it's opened, scroll down a little until you see the Retouch option and click on it. This will open a new page. Here, you can simply drag and drop your image or click on Select a File. Select the image and open it. Now what we are going to do is select the object that we want to remove, in our case, the showman character. Start drawing on the character. You don't have to be too precise, but make sure you are selecting the character edge properly. Once the selection is complete, go to the menu on the left. If you want to make any changes, like adding a different object, you can type the prompt. But since we want to remove the character, we will simply click on Retouch. Wait a few seconds for it to load. You will see many different results. Choose whichever suits best. For me, this last one looks good. Now simply click on Export, and from the menu, click on Download to save it. Now go back to DaVinci Resolve and import the image. That's it. We have successfully separated the background and characters. Let's create the animation. To do this, we need to create a new Fusion composition. Right-click on the Media pool, click on New Fusion Composition, and then click on Create. Simply drag the Fusion composition to the timeline and place it at the beginning. Place your playback head on top of it, and click on the Fusion page icon to open it. Now, our first task is to transform our background and character PNGs into 3D and set them up in 3D space. Let's do it. Go to the Media pool and drag the background image into Workspace. This creates a media in OneNote. To view it, drag it to one of the viewers. Click on the media in OneNote, press F2, and rename it to BG. Renaming nodes is important. To convert this node into 3D, we need an image plane 3D node. With the BG node selected, go to this menu and add an image plane 3D node. To render this image plane node, we need a render 3D node. Move your cursor to the last icon. This is our render 3D node. Click to add it. To view the final result, we need to connect render 3D with media out node. Simply left-click and hold on the mini box on the render 3D node. You'll see a web-like connection. Just connect it to the media out node. You'll notice that our BG node appears in the right viewer, indicating it's converted into 3D. However, the BG node might not fit the viewer perfectly. We'll fix this in a minute, but first, let's add the character PNG. Go to the media pool, left-click, and drag it to the workspace. Rename it by pressing F2. I will call it Showman. With the node selected, add image plane 3D. Take the output of this image plane 3D and connect it with the output of our first image plane 3D node. This will create a merge 3D. Now, we need a camera in our scene to complete the setup and start the animation. Click on the merge 3D node, go to the menu again, and add camera 3D. The moment you add a camera node, you'll realize that your images suddenly vanished. They didn't actually vanish. We can't see those images because the camera is in the same position as the other nodes. Let me drag the merge 3D to the left viewer to explain it properly. This is our 3D space. If you press and hold Alt, then hold the middle mouse button and move your mouse, you will be able to change the view angle. This is our camera. If you hold the Control key and use the scroll wheel, you will be able to zoom in and out. You'll see that the camera is on the same position as the other two images. To view the images, we need to move the camera backwards. You can either click on the blue arrow and move it, or click on the camera node, go to the inspector window, and click on Transform. You'll see different sections such as translation, rotation, etc. In this case, we need to change the Z translation or Z offset. Simply move the wheel to change the value. Or you can left-click on the mini box and change it from there as well. I will double-click here and type the value 3.5. This distance looks good to me. Now you might wonder why I didn't fit the clip with the viewer even after adding the camera. Remember, I said at the beginning of the tutorial that we want to create depth between the background and the showman. Right now, we don't have that. If you look at the left viewer, you will see our background and showman character are in the same position. To create the depth, we can either move the background node a little farther or bring the showman node a little forward. For this case, let's move the background node. Click on the image plane 3D of the background node, go to the inspector, and click on Transform. Double-click on the Z offset box and type a value like -2. It should be sufficient. Now if I go to left viewer and change the angle of view, you will see that now the background is far behind the showman, creating a big enough space between them for depth. Now let's fit these two clips in the viewer on the right, since that is our final result. But before that, let's enable the single viewer by clicking on this icon. First, we want to fit the background with the viewer, then we will do the showman. Click on the image plane 3D of the background node, go to the inspector, and increase the scale until it fits the viewer. Adjust it properly so that it doesn't get too zoomed out. Changing the scale doesn't affect the positioning and keeps them at the same distance. Alright, now click on the image plane 3D of the showman, go to the inspector, click on Transform, and adjust the scale. For the showman, you can also change the Y offset. Don't worry, it won't change its position on the Z-axis, so it won't affect the depth. Just adjust it until you think it looks good enough. Alright, now let's make the initial animation. For that, we will need a Transform 3D node, which we will use to control the camera movement. Click on the camera 3D and press Shift plus space to open the tool finder. Now search for 3XF or Transform 3D, then click Add. Now you can click on this Transform 3D node and rename it as Null. Alright, with the Null node selected, go to frame 0. Then go to the inspector window and add a keyframe for Z offset. Now move forward to frame 90. This is kind of a long animation, So frame 90 is good. On frame 90, go to the inspector and change the Z offset a bit. Keep an eye on the viewer and adjust the value to see how it's looking. Around -0.8 should be good. Let me adjust the preview area accordingly. Alright, if we play this now, we will have a simple zoom-in animation with proper depth. I guess I should adjust the value on frame 90 a little more. That looks good. Now let's play it. Yes, it's looking good now, and you can feel the depth. Now let's make the animation smoother. Go to the top bar on the right and click on this icon called Spline to open it. In the Spline editor, check the box for Z offset and click on this icon called Zoom to Fit to view the keyframes. Now simply left-click and drag to select them and press S on the keyboard. You will see these handles. Drag the bottom one to the left side just like this. If we play it now, you will see we have this buttery smooth animation. If you are having trouble moving the handle, you can also press T on the keyboard. It will open this new bar for ease in and out. Just increase the ease in value to create the same curve. And that's how we create our initial animation. Alright, let's close the Spline editor. So there are two different ways to handle this animation. If you have a good PC with a powerful graphics card, you can create all other animations within the same Fusion composition. Let me show you how to do that. First, select all these nodes except Media Out and press Ctrl+G to create a group. Once you create a group, it will become one clip, which helps keep your 3D animation organized without affecting the previous animations you created. Now let me show you how to continue. Simply double-click on this web line to disconnect the group node from Media Out. Then with the group node selected, add an image plane 3D and add a render 3D. Connect the output of this render 3D to Media Out. After doing this, you can skip to the timestamp for the second animation. Now let me show you another technique for those with lower-end PCs, which I'll be using as well. But first, let me undo all of these 3D steps. Okay, now go back to the edit page. What we're going to do now is go to the frame where our animation ended. Then we will save it as a still image and continue the rest of the animation. In this case, our animation stopped at frame 90, which is exactly 3 seconds since this is a 30 frames per second composition. If you hold Shift and press the right arrow, you'll move 1 second forward each time. So, to move 3 seconds, we need to press it 3 times. Good. Now we are on frame 90. Now go to the top left, click on File, then click on Export, and choose Current Frame as Still. Rename the image. I'll call it Circus, and just like before, choose the save type as PNG, then click on Export. Now select the Fusion composition, press Ctrl+B to cut it, and delete the extra part. Go to the media pool and import the still image. Drag the new Fusion composition to the timeline, place it right where the first one ended. Disable the first composition by selecting it and pressing D. Place your playback head on the new composition and open the Fusion page. Drag the still image from the media pool to the workspace and rename it as Circus. With the Circus node selected, add an image plane 3D and a render 3D. Then connect the output of render 3D to Media Out. Alright, for those following the group method, you can continue from here. As you can see, our image is not fitting with the viewer. Let's fix this. Place the render 3D node on the right side. Click on the image plane 3D node and add a camera 3D node. It will automatically create a merge 3D. Just like before, after adding the camera node, everything vanishes. This time, we want the image to fit the viewer by changing the Z offset because our next animation will start from there. With the camera node selected, go to the Transform menu, double-click on the Z offset box, and type the value 1.65. This is the exact value you need to enter. Otherwise, your image might get cut off or not fit properly. Once you enter the value and click, you'll see that our image fits the viewer perfectly. Alright, let's start this part of the animation. Click on the Camera 3D node and add a Transform 3D. Move the playhead to frame 0. For those following the group method, start this animation from frame 90. I'm sure you already know why, but let me clarify. If we go to the edit page, you'll see our new composition starts at 3 seconds, or frame 90. When we open the Fusion comp, frame 90 becomes frame 0, which is why we're starting from there. For those doing everything in the same comp, start the second animation from frame 90. You can also drag the end of your Fusion comp to increase the duration if needed. Alright, let's go back to Fusion. Okay, so on frame 0, or for group method users, on frame 90, click on the Transform 3D node and add a keyframe for Z offset. Now move forward 90 frames and change the value to around 3.5. That looks good. Let's set the preview area and play it. It's just a simple animation, so let's make it smoother. Open the Spline tab, select the Z offset, and click on the Zoom to Fit button. Then select the keyframes and press S. Now press T on the keyboard and click on the lock in the middle, then change the value to around 55. Let's play the animation and see how it looks. Perfect, it's smooth as butter. Now we're going to create the room and make this image look like a television, as well as add some audience. Let's do it, but first, let's close the Spline tab. Alright, let's go to frame 90. It's important. We'll create the black border first, which will give it a TV look. Add a background node and position it around here. Rename it as black bar. Okay, let me move these nodes a little bit. Select the black bar, then add an image plane 3D. Take its output and connect it with Merge 3D. You'll see it appearing on top of the circus image, so we need to push it behind. But first, let's rename this Transform 3D as Null. Now click on the image plane of the black bar, go to the inspector, and change the Z offset to -0.001. Use this exact value, or your black bar will move weirdly. Now increase the scale to see the bars. If you change it like this, you'll see your sidebars are bigger than the top and bottom bars, so reset that, then uncheck XYZ box. Now increase the X value a little bit, we don't need it too much, then increase the Y accordingly. Now it's looking good. Go to the media pool, click once to cancel any selection, then press Ctrl+I and import all these files. I will provide the link in the description for the files you'll need to import. Go to the media pool and click once to deselect all. Then drag the room image to the workspace and rename it as Room. Add an image plane 3D and connect its output to the Merge 3D. The room node will stay behind everything, so click on the image plane 3D of the room node and change its Z offset to -0.002. Now simply increase its scale until it fits with the viewer. For me, a value around 3.1 looks good. As you can see, we have successfully created the room with a television on the wall. Alright, so here I have added a character and also converted it into 3D. As you might have noticed, it's stuck and we need to position it in a way that it reveals itself as the camera moves. But first, enable Dual Viewer to work efficiently. Make sure that you are on the frame where our animation stopped. Drag the Merge 3D to the left viewer. Let me change the viewing angle a little bit. Now let's position it. Click on the image plane 3D of the character node, then drag it a little forward and move it to the right. Somewhere around this looks good. Maybe we need to change it a little bit more. Okay, looks fine. Now we need to adjust its scale since it appears too big. Go to the inspector and change its scale until it looks good enough. We also need to adjust the Y offset a little bit to place it on the ground, and maybe adjust the Z offset as well. You'll need to do a bit of work here to determine the best position. Alright, now go to frame 0 and make sure that the character isn't visible on that frame. If it is, then you need to change the Z offset to hide it from view initially. Adjust the Z offset value until the character is hidden at frame 0. This ensures that the character reveals itself properly as the camera moves. If I play it, you'll see something like this. I know it's a bit laggy and DaVinci Resolve already crashed a few times, but you get the idea of how to position and animate the character effectively. Now repeat the same process to add as many characters as you want by following this technique. It might take a little time, but don't worry, the final result will be worth it. Just make sure you're doing the adjustments on frame 90 or frame 180 if you are using the group method. Once you're done, you should have something that looks similar to this. Alright, now let's play the entire animation we've done so far and see how it looks. As you can see, it's smooth and nice, and I must say that it's looking better than expected, but we have a little problem. When the second animation starts, it looks a bit weird and noticeable, and it's not smooth on that frame. So we need to fix that. Go back to the Fusion composition and open the Keyframes tab in the top right corner. As the name suggests, we can adjust keyframes here. First, click on the Zoom to Fit button to reveal our nodes. Then click on the small arrow next to Null 2 to see the white lines representing our keyframes. Currently, it's on frame 0 or frame 90 for group method users. Select the keyframe and move it a little bit to the left so it starts before the first animation stops. You can see how many frames you're moving on this box. Move it 5 frames to the left. Perfect. Now, if we go back to the edit page and play the animation, you'll see it's smoother than before, and the transition between animations is less noticeable, which looks awesome. So we've completed our second animation. Now let's move on to the last 2 animations. But before that, save the last frame of the second composition as a still image, just like before. I've already done that, so I'll just import it. Now drag the Fusion composition to the timeline again and open the Fusion page. Alright, so here I have already imported the still image and converted it into 3D. Let's create this table part right now. Click on the camera node and add a transform 3D node. This animation will be a little bit different. Also, I believe by now you understand, but let me tell you once again. Group method users will start this animation from frame 180 since the last 2 animations' total duration is 180 frames. As for others, go to frame 0, then add a keyframe for Z and Y offset and also for X rotation. Go to frame 90 and change the X rotation to 30, so our image tilts like this. Now bring the Z offset value up to push it far, but it's going downwards, so change the Y value by dragging it left to pull it up. It's still big, so change the Z offset more. Let's see now. Gotta change the Y a little bit more. Good. We see at the viewer and change the values accordingly. Now let's preview. So, if you see, it looks like the image is falling on a plane surface, and we wanted to achieve that, but there is a problem. The image gets cut off by the edge as it goes up, so we gotta fix that. Open the Spline tab and select all of the 3 boxes. Now click on Size to Fit, then select all these keyframes and press S. Now deselect the Y offset and press T. Click on the lock icon and change the value to around 50. Okay, so let's play it now. Well, the animation got smoother, but we still need to fix the issue. For that, deselect these 2 and select the Y offset. Now try to put the playhead around the point where it gets cut off, but do it before it comes down. Simply click on the point where your playhead is, and it will add a new keyframe. Drag it a little up, and I guess it looks good. Let's play it. As you can see, it's looking fine. You can adjust the point like this, or play with the Bezier handles if that works. Alright, now let's add the table, but first let's make this image look like a photo frame. For that, we need to add a white border. So add a background node, rename it as white border, and convert it into 3D. By default, the background node is black, so we need to change the color. Click on the white border, go to Inspector, and change the color to white. Now click on the image plane of the white border and change the Z value to -0.001. Then increase the scale a little bit. Untick the XYZ and change the Y value a little. Then decrease the X value a bit. It's looking good enough. Now drag the table image and convert it into 3D. For this one, change the Z value to -0.002, then increase the scale to make it bigger than the frame. We want to give it a spotlight-like effect, so we need to make a circle shape. Click on the table node and add an ellipse mask. Adjust the position if needed, then increase the soft edges. Go to the last frame and adjust the edges a bit more. Maybe increase the scale a little, and adjust the position as well. It looks good now. Add a black background and convert it into 3D, change its Z offset to -0.003, and increase the scale a bit. Now, although I have changed its Y offset, but I would recommend you not to do that. Just increase the scale until it fits with viewer and you will be fine. I have refined the ellipse edges a little and made some changes, and this is how it looks currently. With this, we have completed the third part of the effect. Let's do the last and final part. As you might have noticed, I have changed the total duration of the fusion composition as well because I want to do the last part of the animation on this same composition. So click on the Null 3 and add a Transform 3D node. Let me adjust these. Okay, rename it as Null 4. Let me just increase the preview area a little. Now click on Null 3 and go to the frame where our third animation ended, then go 15 frames backward from there. Click on Null 4, go to the inspector, and add a keyframe for the Y offset. Then from there, go 90 frames forward, which will be 165 frames for us. For group method users, it will be something like 345. Change the Y value to push it up. Now, if you notice my black background has misplaced, it's because I changed the Y offset a little bit. So let me reset that. Okay, we don't want the black background to affect the bottom part of our table. For that, we need to adjust the ellipse mask. So click on it and increase its size a little bit more, then drag it a little bit downward. Okay, now it's looking good. Now let's get back to the animation. On frame 165, change the Y value until the table moves up and disappears completely. Now if I drag the playhead around, you will see how it works. I can't play it because it's lagging. Now open the spline editor, make an S-curve, and change the ease in and out value to 50. Alright, so if you notice, the edge of your table is like paper. It doesn't have the thickness that gives a 3D look. We can create that quite easily. For that, drag the table image to the workspace again. Rename it as Table Edge, convert it into 3D, and connect it with the merge. Now, if I change the Y offset of this table edge and drag it down, you will see we have this 3D image. So, what we are going to do is mask one portion of this table edge node and place it along the bottom edge of our original table node. For that, enable Dual Viewer and drag the table edge to the left viewer. Now click on it and add a polygon mask. Let me disable the mask for now and simply select a small area like this. That much should be sufficient. Enable the polygon node, and this is what we have now. We will increase its scale and position it near the edge of the table. So, click on the image plane of the table edge and increase its scale to make it big. Then change the Y offset a little. Let me increase the scale a little more. Okay. Now change the Y offset to push it up until it fits with the edge of our original table node. You might also need to adjust the mask accordingly to match the table. We don't need too much thickness. Okay, so it's done. But if you notice, we cannot see any difference. Well, it's obviously a fake effect, not actual 3D, but we can get the 3D look. For that, we need another node. Let me adjust it first. Click on the Image Plane 3D and add a Brightness Contrast node, and decrease the gain a little. Well, if you notice, it started to look like a solid edge. Let me change the mask a little more. It's still too much for me. That looks much better now. You can click on the Brightness and Contrast node and also decrease the gamma as well. With this, our last part is also done. Now let me go to the Edit page and play all these animations together. Alright, let's see how it looks. Well, the effect has turned out quite well. It's looking really nice. Now you can add camera shake to it, and also add motion blur if you want to refine it further. You can check out the videos added in the description to know how to add camera shake and motion blur. I will stop here. If you find it helpful, then give it a like and comment. It took 2 weeks to edit this video. There were many problems, but I will try to upload once a week. Let's see, but I can't guarantee anything in monsoon. See ya.